guys, if you don't know me, my name is Jess and welcome to The Bridge. We are so excited that you've joined us for this new series. For the next 4 weeks, we're talking about having faith in an anxious world, and we could not be more excited. It's gonna be fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Luke has our first message today, but before we get into it, I wanna let you know if you text the number on the screen, we would love to get connected to you. So if it's your first time, text the number on the screen. We'd love to send you a gift. We'd love to get connected. We don't want to just be here on the internet. We want to be living life together. And so make sure you get connected to us. We'd love to help you find a small group, help you learn more about Doxology youth, and help you get connected to the world around you. So text the number on the screen. Don't forget to do it. You can pause the video. So I know you can do it right now. Pause the video and text the number. And now let's get into our message. We're super excited to talk about faith in an anxious world.
What is up, everyone? My name is Luke. I am a resident for the college ministry here at Doxology called Encounter. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to be able to come and look at God's Word with you. I've had the privilege of working with students for about 6 years now. I've had the opportunity to work with middle school, high school, and now college students. And I gotta tell you, it is some of the most fun that I've ever had in my life. Like, it is honestly the most fun job. I think it's just because it's fun to be around students. And the other part of that is because I believe that I will forever be aware of every new pop culture trend that is happening. Like, as long as I work with students, I will be aware of all the new trends. And that's because I firmly believe that most big trends start with middle school and high school students. Like the first time I ever heard about TikTok was 2 years ago. Some 7th grade guy comes up to me and just starts telling me about TikTok. And now I have my 50-year-old dad asking me about what TikTok is and saying how his coworkers are always on it. And I'm just like, that's kind of scary to me, honestly. Like, I don't want to ever scroll through TikTok and see my dad dancing. That's just scary to me. Another example is that I swear I still play this game. It's called Clash Royale. I don't know if any of y'all know what that is or have heard of it, or it's just so old that you're like, this guy is so weird. But because 4 years ago, I was with some 8th grade students down at a church in Austin, and we were on our way to camp, and they were like, Luke, you gotta download this game, you gotta play it. And so they made me get it. I joined their clan, and now they're all in college, and I'm still playing Clash Royale. Literally, I played it this morning. I wake up, I play Clash Royale. I had to find a new clan. They're just so done with it. But see, trends, they start with this age group. Some are great, some are pointless, like Clash Royale. But some trends, they're just not the best. And one trend that is very prevalent with teens is anxiety. And so over the next 4 weeks, we're gonna be looking at and talking about anxiety and how that plays out in our life. And so tonight we'll be looking at a passage that shows how we can have peace in anxious times. However, I wanna be clear, there are some of you here that are listening that have struggled with anxiety for as long as you can remember. Some of you, there are other factors going on in your anxiety, things that the spiritual root of anxiety doesn't quite handle. Things like traumatic experiences or your biological makeup. And tonight, for those of you that fall into that category, I want you to know that there is additional professional medical help that is available to you in the form of doctors and counselors that have been trained and equipped to handle clinical anxiety. Because there is no shame in seeking out that help, none at all. But no matter your background, no matter if you fall into the camp of clinical anxiety or just regular run-of-the-mill anxiety that we're going to be talking about tonight, I want you to know that the Bible shows us, and what it shows us about Jesus and anxiety and what we're going to be looking at and talking about tonight regarding the spiritual root of anxiety, it still applies and it matters for you. So specifically tonight, what we're going to be looking at is we're going to highlight what anxiety is and show how we can have peace in the midst of it. And so we'll be looking at Mark 6:45 through 51. a story that most of y'all are going to be familiar with. So if you can make your way, either find it on your phone or pull out your Bible, that's where we're going to be tonight, Mark 6:45 and 51. And I'm going to read it for us in our entirety here. And we pick up, and it says, "Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to Bethsaida. While he dismissed the crowd, after leaving them, he went up on the mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out, because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them and said, 'Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid.' Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed." So I want to give you some background at what's kind of going on here in Mark right before this moment. So right before this, Jesus and his disciples, they just finished feeding the 5,000, another very big story that most of y'all are familiar with. And just as they finish that up, Jesus immediately says to his disciples, "Hey, I want y'all to go ahead, go to the other side of this lake, and I'm going to go up on this mountain, and I'm just going to spend some time by myself and pray with God." And so Jesus, he comes back down that mountain early the next morning. It says just before dawn. And Jesus has been praying all night long. When he finishes, he sees his disciples. He looks out onto the lake and sees his disciples still straining in the boat due to the wind, the waves, and the storm that came upon them. See, the disciples are only halfway across the lake, and it is already almost morning. And these disciples, they find themselves in this anxious situation. That brings us to our first point of the night, that we will all face storms of anxiety in our life. But what is anxiety? I think a good definition to explain anxiety is that anxiety that we face is that anxiety is the mind and body's reaction to stressful, dangerous, or unfamiliar situations. In everyday terms, it's the intense worry we feel when our world is unsure and insecure. See, and anxiety has become a common problem in America. The World Health Organization recently came out with a study that classified the U.S. as the #1 country that experiences anxiety. And earlier when I said that like your generation, like teens, y'all are where the trends come from, and we see that anxiety is a trend. I'm not just talking about like one of those fun trends like TikTok. No, I'm talking about a trend that is an epidemic that is growing more and more each year, and anxiety is growing more, especially among teens. See, in Pew Research, an organization that comes out with studies, came out with a study last year saying 7 out of 10 teens see anxiety as a major problem in their lives. It is something that cuts across race, gender, and socioeconomic lines, meaning no matter what your background is, you will face anxiety. And you know this, I don't have to give you this data to explain to you that anxiety is a big part of your lives or a big problem in your life. No, you feel it every day. And see, back in 7th grade, I remember a moment where I really felt and experienced anxiety. See, I was dating this girl, and I thought she was great. It was one of those girls that was way cooler than me, like way, way cooler than me. Like just me being with her, like raised my social standing. It's kind of like that thing is like why is she with me? But all my friends thought it was awesome. They were jealous. And then one day I get this text, and y'all know the text. The text that reads, "Hey, we need to talk." And whether that's from your parents or your friends or your significant other, you know immediately when you get that text, it is not gonna be good. Like immediately when I read those words, my heart starts pumping. My stomach is in knots. That's all I can think about. I'm anxious, like what does she mean? What did I do? What are my friends gonna think of me if she breaks up with me? Is she gonna break up with me? How am I gonna recover from this? I felt so focused and paralyzed by that. And in fact, she did break up with me, but it was not the end of the world like I thought it would be. But all of those feelings, all those thoughts, the clammy hands, the knot in our stomach, the capturing of our attention, We've all felt those. We've worried about school. We've worried about making good grades so that we can get into a good college or so that our parents won't be mad at us. We're anxious about our relationships, about our social media posts. If we portray and give off this sort of life in our social media that is desirable by other people, that other people will become envious of it. We want that attention. We feel anxious about what people think about us. Maybe it's a situation at your home with a family member, with a parent, with a brother or a sister. And we become fixed on these things. They become the only thing that we focus on. It affects our relationships with other people. It affects our bodies. And it is not uncommon for people to throw up because of an anxious situation. And during this time with an election taking place, with COVID still lingering around, our anxiety has only intensified. See, the truth is that we all will deal with anxiousness. I get stressed. I worry about what's going to happen in the future. See, it's not about if we're ever going to feel anxious, it's about when. See, a lot of Jesus' disciples, and when we see this, where they're stuck in this storm, a lot of these disciples in this boat are from this region. They're not unfamiliar with this territory. A lot of them are from this region, and a lot of them were fishermen by trade. Like they grew up on this lake fishing this water. They were familiar with it. And so a part of a thing about being a fisherman for them is that storms were inevitable. Literally 2 chapters before this in Mark 4, we see another storm that came upon these disciples in the boat. It's not uncommon for them to face storms. It is a part of their lives, just like anxiety is a part of ours. But see, Jesus, he looks out at the shore after he's done praying, and he sees his disciples straining to get across the lake. And it has been hours, and they're still in the middle of it. They're skilled fishermen, and they're trying their hardest to get across the lake. They're rowing as hard as they can, and they're still only halfway there. But guys, I really want you to notice what comes next. In verse 48, it says, "Shortly before dawn, he went out to them walking on the lake." And this is incredible. Like at the beginning of the story, you're kind of like, what? Like, okay, Jesus, he sends them off to go to the other side, and he goes and prays. But then you're like, how is he gonna get to the other side? Like he's alone, and there's a storm that's raging now on this lake, and the boat that has all the skilled fishermen is only halfway across the lake. Like how in the world is Jesus gonna get across? Like it's taken them all night, and they're only halfway across. And then bam, it says, he literally just walks out on there. Like he's casually strolling to them in the middle of this crazy storm. And it's not saying he's straining. It's not saying that he's having a difficult time. Jesus just begins walking out on this, in the middle of this crazy storm, which gives us our second key point, that Jesus, he is greater than the storm. See, at this moment, Jesus is showing that he is God, that the laws of nature answer to him and not the other way around. Jesus is doing what only God can do, and at this moment, we see Jesus as unmistakably God. The disciples see him, they begin to freak out, and Jesus reassures them not to worry because he is God. The same storm that had professional fishermen stranded and stressing in the lake all night didn't stand a chance against the Son of God. But so often we look a lot like the disciples in the boat in the storm when we are dealing with anxiousness and anxiety. We're alone, we're worried, we're trying to fix our situation, our own strength. We take more than we can handle. We're trying all that we can to just row and row and row to get across the other side on our own power. I think a good example of this is for Encounter. We've been meeting outside for our weekly worship nights. What y'all get to do at the bridge, y'all get to bring out those awesome camping chairs, those super light, easy to carry camping chairs outside and set those up. Well, for us, we're carrying these massive, those gray chairs, these huge stacks of gray chairs, the ones that you sit in the loft at a normal bridge. We're having to carry huge stacks of these outside, about 200 of them. And it takes forever, and they're heavy, and they're cumbersome, and they're so annoying. And without fail, every single week, there is one person that is always going to drop at least one of the stacks. And the problem is that what they do is they keep adding chair after chair after chair onto their stack, thinking that they're going to be able to handle it, thinking that they have the strength to do it. And the problem is that they keep stacking, and they don't have the strength to keep it up, and it comes crashing down. And that's us a lot of times. We think we have our our anxious situation under control, when in reality we don't, that we have the strength to get through it ourselves. And Jesus is saying, why are you straining? Look to me, the Son of God, the only one that can walk on water, the one that is over all things. See, we put ourselves in a losing position every time we rely on our own power to get us through something. And this is so countercultural to what we're told. We're told to be able to do everything on our own, to be independent, to not rely on anybody or anything else, to be able to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. That's kind of this idea that we're weak if we have to rely on anybody else. But Jesus, he is showing us our need for him, that on our own, we're just straining as hard, working as hard as we can just to get halfway across the lake. And he alone has the power to walk on water and calm the storm. But that's not it. See, that's not the end of it. And Jesus, our third point is that Jesus, he gets in the unsteady boat with us. And guys, this is crucial. That Jesus doesn't just show his disciples his power and glory by walking on the water to them, but he cares enough about them to get in the boat with them in the middle of the storm. And how reassuring is that the God of the universe, the only one that has the power to walk on water, gets in the boat with us. Like I think back to Mark 4, the previous storm the disciples see themselves in, a storm where they're freaking out. They're thinking they're going to die. They're thinking this is the end, and Jesus is right there with them in the middle of that storm. See, I still remember early in elementary school, I went on a school field trip. It was during Christmas time, and this place we went to was massive. Like I was really young, and there was a lot of people there. It was this massive toy drive, and the crowd was huge. And over the course of this morning, I got separated from my class and from my teacher. I couldn't find anyone I knew. And immediately I began to feel anxious and worry about what's going to happen. Am I going to find my friends? Am I going to find my teacher? Am I going to get back home? Like, am I going to see my parents again? Like, is this it? Like, oh my gosh, like I'm about to be left here at this toy drive forever. I began to worry over and over, like, what is happening? And then moments later, some security guard comes over. He found me. He saw me looking around, lost and confused. And he stood with me while we waited on my teacher to come and get me. You see, and it wasn't that the situation was over when the security guard came and found me. It wasn't that like I had been reunited with my class and I was safely going back to school, but that his presence in that situation brought me peace to know that I wouldn't be left behind. That him being there gave me peace. I think one of the most fascinating things that we see in the Bible is that the most said command is do not fear. Like we literally have Jesus saying here in Mark 6:50, take courage, it is I, do not be afraid. It is mentioned, this command, do not fear, a total of 366 times in the Bible. And I heard this from someone else, and I think it's awesome. It's that they said that there's a reminder for us in the Bible every day of the year, including leap year, to not fear or to be worried. And the reason is because we have the confidence as a follower of Jesus that he is right there with us. But for those of you that are sitting here thinking, Luke, you just don't understand. I can't just choose to not worry. Like I've tried that. Like I've tried just not worrying or freaking out or being afraid of the situation I'm in just because the Bible tells me to. And I'm not just saying, hey, like don't just say, oh, this isn't a big deal. Like I'm not going to worry about this. But I want you to know that you're not alone in these situations. Like I want you to pause and think about who you have in the boat with you. Because I love this. It's in Psalm 54:23, it says, cast your cares on the Lord for he will sustain you. David, the guy that says this, he might have been one of the most anxious people in the whole Bible. Like all throughout the Psalms, we see David, he's lamenting to God. He's worried about his life. He's worried about the kingdom of Israel. But time and time again, in these anxious moments in his life, in these anxious situations, he calls on the Lord when he finds himself in them. And so not only do we just have the God of the universe in the boat with us, but we're told to give him our burdens so that he can sustain us. And I want to share with you like what I do when I find myself in anxious situations, which is daily. Like I find myself like worried just like you do. And so I want to share with you what I do when this happens to me, and first thing is I pause. Like I stop and I just allow myself to just focus on the Lord, to just pause, to rest, and then I pray. I say to God, I can't do this on my own. I am so worried or stressed about this event or this situation, and I surrender to you right now because I don't have the strength to do it. And it's not that hey, right when I say amen, that anxious situation is gone, but I have the peace knowing that I am not in the boat alone trying to row across a stormy lake on my own power. And I imagine there are some of you sitting there thinking about your specific anxious situation, and you're trying to figure out if what I'm saying is actually true. If what I'm saying that you can find peace because Jesus is with you in your stormy situation, and you're trying to be like, I gotta see if that's true or not. Some of you that are anxious about your grades, knowing that you have to make good grades in order to get a scholarship, scrolling on Instagram, trying to compare yourself to those that are older than you, just anxious about the way you look and about, are you gonna be that good looking in the future? Anxious about sports, anxious about relationships at home, a family situation. There's so many things that give you anxiety. You're thinking about that and you're like, they're a big deal, and I can't just say like they're not. And I'm telling you, I'm not just saying that they're not a big deal, because they are. But I want you to know that we can acknowledge that Jesus is with us in those situations and have faith that he can sustain us. Not just to say, oh, like that's a big deal, but I'm not gonna worry about it. No, it is a big deal, but guess what? Jesus is there with you in it. And it's impossible for me to explain how the peace of Jesus surpasses these situations, but that's just it, that I can trust that I have peace because God promises it. And that's why, because he promises it. See, we all will face anxiety and storms in our life. That's just the fact. Just like the disciples and these fishermen face storms on the sea. See, but the thing is that Jesus is greater than them all. And Jesus, out of his grace and his love and mercy for us, decides to get into the unsteady boat with us. And Jesus being in that boat with us brings peace in our lives, that we can have confidence, that we can turn to the God of the universe with our anxiety and our school and our everyday situations, the little things, the big things, that we can turn to him and lay it at his feet, knowing that in the end, he is much greater than all of it. Even if we don't see freedom from it in this life, we can celebrate that Jesus overcame sin and death for the world, and that those that follow him will one day be in the presence of the Lord forever, free from anxiety and worry. Please pray with me. God, we thank you for your word. We thank you for an opportunity to be reminded of your love and your grace in our lives. God, that we don't understand it, that it's hard to comprehend it. But God, you love us and care for us no matter what. And that in our anxiousness and in our anxiety and our worry, God, that you don't leave us and you don't forsake us. And let us have the faith to trust that you are who you say you are, and that you will give us peace in those situations. We love you and we praise you. And it's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen.
I'm like, calm down, you're fine. And then you just keep saying that faster and faster.
I should not be this worried about it.
It gave me a lot of anxiety not knowing like what to even do in high school.
Stress is a normal part of life when we are under pressure in new and demanding circumstances. That's a good thing because it helps us adapt when it matters most. There are many reasons why we may feel a little bit of anxiety in today's world. Anxiety is one of the emotions that doesn't feel great, like sadness or anger or fear. Anxiety is unpleasant, but it plays an important role in our lives. We are going to feel anxiety from time to time in our lives, but we don't have to feel anxious about feeling anxious. Everyone experiences anxiety.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I do feel anxious.
I'm anxious all the time.
I think just the overall pressure to do very well in a lot of different categories.
Homework.
For AP classes, for honors and all that.
Once that test comes in front of me, everything blanks and I'm like, oh gosh.
Reading out loud in class.
Getting ready for college.
Did you get in? Have you sent the things? And
accumulates, it's just stress. These relationships can cause a lot of anxiety.
Making friends.
Relationships with parents.
Social media, I blame myself too. We put the best parts of ourselves on social media. And if you spend a lot of time looking at that and kind of indoctrinating yourself that that's how life is, then you kind of blame yourself for a lot of the bad things that happen.
Well, a lot of people were very competitive with each other.
You want to have this certain body or you want to have this certain amount of money.
Growing up, I definitely didn't have a lot of the things that I wanted. The things that I wore or even school supplies.
I was up all night trying to think, is this the right thing to wear? What do freshmen wear?
I had a ton of acne on my face, and I felt like nobody else did in my school and especially in my friend group. I felt like that's all that people were looking at.
I just have really racing thoughts. My thoughts just move really quickly to all the different fears.
And a lot of times it's not even something that would happen. It's just your anxious brain just coming up with scenarios.
It's everything's closing in on you and you can't do anything. You're worried about what's gonna happen.
If anyone talks to me, it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. I just focus on what I'm anxious about and I can't think about anything else.
Sometimes it can affect your physical body. You can have a hard time breathing.
You're breathing, I guess. It kind of bottles up and it freaks you out.
I just can't breathe. I can't get a full breath in.
Sometimes it's my chest is tight. Other times it's I'm burning a hole in my stomach.
If you feel like you're on a roller coaster and it's right when you're at the very, very top and you feel like your stomach is up in your chest and you're about to fall.
Having 1,000 cups of coffee in your body, which you can imagine is a little much.
A little more sweaty than usual. You don't want anyone to notice, and you kind of just think that everyone's looking at you and you're a weirdo and no one's gonna like you because you're freaking out.
That's kind of what it feels like, at least for me.
It's really hard to explain.
I, for a long time, felt like I was the only one who felt that way. And when I started talking to my friends about it, they were like, oh, I actually feel the same way.
A lot of people deal with that problem.
I mean, I know, at least with me and my friends, we would all experience it, and we'd just talk about it a little bit, what's going on, what we're worried about.
Saying what is making me anxious already feels better. Just put it out there. Just use what words you can, and you guys can just start talking about it. Because if you keep it inside, it just gets worse and worse and worse, and it gets bigger and bigger. But again, if you say it out loud, it's not as scary.
A lot of people go through it. As cheesy as it sounds, you're not alone. A lot of people have anxiety.
Guys, we know this is a serious topic that I know might have brought up a bunch of feelings and emotions and different thought processes. And so we believe that the best thing beyond just watching this video is taking a next step to getting connected to people and talking about how you're feeling, what you're thinking, and what this means for you. And so we don't want you to just stop right here and absorb all of this content. We want you to get connected. If you are having anxious thoughts or having depressive thoughts, we want you to connect with someone. And so we have resources in the description box for you to join a small group. We have small groups that meet online every Wednesday night at 8:15, or you can also submit a prayer request or just text a number to get connected to Doxology Youth and make sure that you're not alone. You don't have to live life alone. You are surrounded by people, and we want to make sure you know that you are loved and you are valuable. So make sure you follow those next steps. We hope you have an awesome week, and we can't wait to see you next week. If you took something important away from this message, if you heard something you've never heard before, do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe button, because when you do that, it helps us reach more people and share this message. So make sure you do that right now. Right now. I don't know. Was that long enough?